All right. Let's see. Matthew J. Ooh, this one's going to get...
Uh-oh.
Suppose you are offered the option to retroactively remove one category of restrictions from the NFA. Length, caliber, muffling, or automatic fire. Which would you choose, and how do you think the U.S. civilian firearms market might have developed differently as a result?
Ugh. Just one of them, huh?
Just one. You want me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
All right. Purely from a selfish, personal perspective, I would get rid of the restrictions on automatic fire. Because of all of these four different aspects, the one that I would like to have more of myself are fully auto guns. And specifically, I want to play with light and heavy machine guns more. Now, what I think is interesting about that is if I were to, time travel back and take that out of the NFA, I don't know that it would really have had any substantial impact on firearms development in the U.S. Until the NFA, machine guns were not very common. In fact, right up even until the Hughes Amendment, machine guns were not particularly valuable. They were worth more because they were restricted, but there was only a very small group of people who were actually interested in having them. For most people, you know what, and this is still true today, machine guns cost a lot of money to shoot because they go through a lot of ammo. And if you're a typical recreational shooter, yes, they're fun, but they're kind of more the sort of fun that you want to go to a range sometime and rent one for like 3 magazines and then go, wow, I'm glad I don't always burn through 1,000 rounds of ammo in 10 minutes. So I don't think it would have had that much impact on firearms development or on the firearms market. Would it have impacted development? That's possible. If you could have people experimenting with machine guns from a legally safe and easy position in their garages, would we have better guns today? Maybe? I don't know. There's no way to really judge what could have been. I think the one that would have had the most impact on the firearms market would be length.
Interesting. So I'm very close to what your answer is, but I'm going to change it slightly. So I would have taken full auto off because for the same reasons, honestly. Mm-hmm. It'd be nice to be able to go pick up a $400 Sten to go have fun with. However, the reality is people have put this magic aura around fully automatic guns because they're prohibited and hard to get a hold of. The reality is that full auto guns and the practicality of fully automatic use in any environment, whether it's a match environment or combative environment or military purposes or defensive purposes, is extremely limited. In fact, I would pose the question that for the most part, you could give the 90 percentile of our men in the field armed with current M16s, just give them some automatic variants, and it wouldn't change the battlefield at all.
Yeah.
So I think you can do almost as good, if not just as good, work with some automatic rifles. And I'm not arguing we shouldn't have fully automatic. Do not misinterpret that.
10,000 people have already read that into your comments.
I am saying that when all things are equal, and if fully automatic was not restricted like it is now, people would quickly learn that gee whiz, fully automatic isn't all that valuable.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Now, is it fun? Yeah, it's really cool. I get it. But you shoot a whole bunch of money real fast, and you turn a bunch of money into noise real quick, and you don't get a lot of value in return on that for a length of time.
An interesting side note here, we have actually talked about trying to do some machine gun compatible match. One thing we thought would be really cool is to do a heavy machine gun match with 4-man or 3-man crews on water-cooled guns, but then also just utilization of light machine guns in the 2-gun environment. And haven't really been able to come up with any way to do it. The problem is that the few things that you specifically get out of machine guns, which are like suppressive fire, are extremely difficult to quantify in any way in any sort of match environment. Short of, you've got, even I'm trying to come up with the examples now, and even then, okay, you've got 10 rounds and you have to get the most number of hits on the target. Well, okay, you're going to go semi-auto.
Unless you're required to fire in full auto, and then you're really artificially messing with stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So I don't know that it would have had that much difference. I think it's interesting that machine guns are so much more coveted today than they were 20 or 30 years ago. And I think that's largely a result of them being restricted, more so than people actually having had experience with them and making the conscious and informed decision that they prefer that. So, I mean, if machine guns were legal today, there would be a lot of AR-15s out there with, safe semi-full, but I don't know that all that many people would be actually using them except for blammo videos on YouTube.
Yeah, no, 99% of the time they'd be shooting it semi-auto.
Yeah.
And, you know, this, again, don't misinterpret this. There is a purpose for this, obviously. The reason for having a machine gun, a belt-fed machine gun, is not only to suppress an enemy, but to control a sector so that you can put down fire, a high rate of fire, and have a high probability of a hit. However, it may be a hit out of 100 rounds or whatever, but that's something that's a real-world scenario in a military purpose. You might need that on the Eastern Front or Normandy or whatever. And we saw, you know, in World War I, the MP-18, that was full auto because you were going to jump in a trench and you wanted to not only suppress the enemy, but increase the probability of a hit in a high-stress environment. That all makes sense. However, when you look at you know, intermediate cartridges like 5.45 and 5.56, I'd argue you can suppress just as well with semi-auto as you can with full.
Yeah.
So, again, I think I'm going to reiterate, the purpose is, the reason that they're exotic and exciting is because you can't have them.
Yep.
Once they became common, they would be less exciting quickly. I found this with suppressors. Suppressors are exotic, and I got 2 of them. And I went and used it a couple times. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And it's great to not be loud around neighbors and such. I get that. There's a lot of practical use, more practical use for suppressors than there is even full auto. But the reality is it adds a whole bunch of weight on the end of the gun. I could put earmuffs on, and as long as I'm not bothering someone with my gunfire, it's kind of a pain in the ass to use. Makes the gun more dirty, it's heavier, and it's not that much great. And the reason that they're exotic is because they're regulated.
Right.
So my answer is going to say I would like to remove full auto from the NFA so that we could get cool guns without having to mess with them. So you could get a Sten or an MP40 or a DPM without having to have it being modified. That'd be super cool. However, I think the thing that would have made the biggest difference in firearms design would have been taking suppressors off.
You think so?
I think suppressors would have changed the game more. I think that the current state of suppressors aren't where it could be if it wasn't for the fact that it's a limited market.
Well, that's very true. There might have been, the thing is, the ATF defines a suppressor as basically anything that reduces the noise produced by a firearm. So it has probably stifled research into ways to make guns integrally more quiet, even if it's not through the traditional, basically take the gas and slow it down before it exits the gun.
Heck, even your sound dampener on their GAU replica can't be the correct one because it's considered a suppressor by the ATF.
Even though what it actually does is reduce the noise from a 10-inch carbine to equivalent to a 20-inch rifle.
But they consider it a suppressor.
Right, because it does reduce by like 1.5 decibels.
And I think there's other cool things that could happen with suppressors. Now, this is getting into DEF CON territory, but you could use the back blast of the gas to do things like charge batteries or perform other actions on the gun.
Yeah.
And since they are not generally integral to the gun like they could be, I think we could see a lot of cool stuff happen by using that gas as another energy source.
That's a really interesting point.
But we don't get to see that.
Yeah.
So
could use the heat as a power source too.
And I think all those potentialities are not on the table because we just can't do it.
Well, that one might change. I don't see full auto being,
I don't know,
unrestricted anytime soon.
We'll see.
All right. Moving on. Arya R says, your 2-gun videos are some of the best tests of practical shooting.
Thank you.
Karl, you have been a high-power target shooter, and Ian was, from what I remember, a bullseye pistol shooter in college. How does your target shooting background inform your practical shooting? What aspects of training or skills from your target shooting background do you find applicable in the realm of practical shooting? I would say the aspect of bullseye that I find relevant to practical shooting is hitting things.
I was going to say the same thing. There's one quintessential skill, whether it's a match or it's a combat environment or self-defense. Shooting fast and accurate is a great skill. And so accurate being a key word there, right? So the things that I pulled out of high power is that when, generally speaking, if I'm on my good day, sometimes I have bad days, when I bring a rifle up, even under time stress or a part-time at a 2-gun match, the basic fundamentals are already inherent. The breath control, the sight picture, the trigger control is all just there. I don't have to think about it. That's all on automatic. Right. The other stuff is what I have to worry about, and that's what allows me to get real quick hits real fast when the buzzer goes off. Simply put. Yeah.
Basically, those fundamentals transfer really, really effectively through pretty much all disciplines.
So and there are people better than me by far, no doubt about it. But the reality is that if you're going to practice one thing, it is the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Don't worry about anything else. And then you can move on from that. Once you learn how to properly shoot a rifle without time stress accurately, or a pistol accurately, you can bring that skill set into a timed event.
Being able to hit small things far away on the first try is the most fundamental skill, and you can build everything else on top of that. But if you first develop a foundation of, say, pulling the trigger really fast, it's going to be a lot harder to go back and build accuracy on top of that basis.
I may sound like an old fogey, but I'm concerned I'm seeing that happening with some of the practical shooting sports. Stuff like high power and your pistol shooting it's kind of boring.
It's certainly boring as hell to watch.
Well, it's boring.
It's not just boring to do, it's boring and frustrating to do.
It is. High power is extremely frustrating. However, you know what? Very few benefits in life come without difficulty.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to put in the discipline and the effort, and it really is a discipline of either of those sports or any of the marksmanship-oriented sports, you will benefit from it in the long run.
The X-ring in 22 collegiate bullseye is the size of a printed period.
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
Wow. All right.
Nathan F. directed at Ian and Karl, but with Karl's national match experience.
Wow, a lot of these.
He may have a stronger opinion. When I was a kid, I shot a fair bit using a Hasty sling. A vet friend of the family showed me how to do it. At some point along the way, I dropped it, but have recently started experimenting with it again. What is your opinion of this technique? Does it have merit? Something you stop using as your stability without it increases? Just wondered what your thoughts were. I've never seen either of you employ it, so that might be my answer.
Well, that's not exactly true. I did deploy it at one of the more recent AZ 2-gun matches up in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. There was the spinner stage, in fact. I ran up to it and I had this SP1 and I had the ability to go hasty sling with it. And I really thought, I'm like, am I going to go hasty sling and try to shoot this offhand, or will I go prone and just monopod? And in the stage, I chickened out and I monopoded and got a time of X. I think it was, I don't know, let's say it was 40 seconds. I don't remember. And then after the stage, I decided I want to see what would have happened if I tried it with a hasty sling. So I slung up hasty sling on the clock and shot it in 40 seconds, whatever it was. It was almost exactly the same time. Here's the thing. The hasty sling takes a moment to get into. Worse, it takes a moment to get out of. That's the biggest problem. And you don't want to be tied to your gun. So I don't ever really seem to use it in a match.
Right.
And the reality is that monopoding off the magazine is always very stable. And why would I choose to hasty sling if I could monopod?
Yeah.
So some of those things, being tied to your sling, whether a hasty sling where it's not exactly tied to it or actually being slung up like you are in high power, they are excellent from a marksmanship perspective, but I very rarely, if ever, find a reason to use it. I would see, if you were hunting a deer and you had nowhere to rest or no tree to hold on to or some artificial support to use, I would see using it then because you have no expectation of getting out of it quickly.
Right.
But at a match, you need to get out of it quickly.
Right.
So I think I'm sorry, I'll stop in a second. I think it has very little practical use.
I think the video evidence that you're seeing is prejudiced by the fact that it's always a fast-paced environment. Mm-hmm. There are situations where a hasty sling would be a very useful tool. They're just not ever situations that are going to show up in a 2-gun match because we've got 60, 90, maybe 120-second par times to work with.
Thus the hunting example.
Right.
If you're out hunting in the field and there's the buck, well, you may hasty sling because for some reason there's no tree here or here for you to grab onto, and you don't want to lose that buck.
Say you're in Arizona where there are no trees.
Hasty sling up, yeah, you're not going to grab a saguaro or a cholla. This is where hasty sling would matter because there's no expectation of getting out of that position quickly.
Yep.
Otherwise, in a martial application, unless you're a sniper and for some reason you have no rest, I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
All right. We still have a bunch to go here. Daniel R. says, I am curious about the evolution and durability of polymer or plastic used in modern firearms. Is wood still relevant as a material? What are the advantages or disadvantages of polymer frames and pistols? Also, how is it made? Are there any new or different types of materials on the horizon in firearms manufacturing?
I'm not a polymer expert. Maybe you are.
I'm not really a polymer expert. Polymers have certainly evolved, and polymer is really a catch-all term for a wide variety of materials. Some of them are plastics of various chemical makeups as we think of them. Some are composite materials where you'll have fiberglass built into fiberglass resins, and I am not enough of a chemistry expert to really go into detail on the different materials themselves. I think they are fantastic materials to use in firearms. I think we have plenty of experience to show that already. Is wood still a viable material? Yes. I have a hard time coming up with a place where wood is objectively better once you get rid of aesthetic considerations.
Okay, I'm glad you qualified that. I was going to say, I can't tell you about the exact qualities of polymers in general, and you said polymer is a wide swath of things.
Yeah.
However, from experience, polymer magazines, the G-Wax, Cav Arms polymer lower, for example, in which I had one that was, we have one that has bullet holes in it, it still works. I was at a match where 2 guns were run over that were in a bag. One was a polymer G-Wax lower, and one was a regular aluminum. lower, and the aluminum gun broke, and the polymer one bent, and they continued to work. It didn't bend; it bent and then bent back into shape. Polymer, like I said already, polymer magazines. I frankly think polymer magazines are more durable. I've seen them. I've seen more aluminum mags break than any polymer mag. So from just experience, I would put my faith in polymers, and I would say that does wood have an application anymore? With the exception of aesthetics, I would say no, it is obsolete.
Okay.
Yeah.
A bold statement,
Yeah,
but defensible.
yeah, I think it's defensible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Kyle A. Something I was wondering about the 2G ACM is if you're allowed to introduce another camera into them to capture different angles like the ones attached to the rifle or shooter from other vantage points, maybe a first-person point of view, drone shots from overhead, or facing the shooter.
I think Kyle asked this without watching our most recent 2GM Manifesto series, because we just fairly recently, acquired what's called a Mohawk camera, MOHOC, and it's got this Velcro bottom, and it can go on a helmet, but it can also go on your shoulder. We haven't tried the shoulder thing yet. We've tried it strictly on the helmet, and it's meant for actual martial and police and tactical applications. It's like, think of it as a hardened GoPro.
Yeah.
And you can adjust the camera angle and lens and all that. And so far, we've done some really good work with it. And we have some first-person footage from the two-gun match doing that.
Right.
We tried, and we're going to get more. We tried using a drone.
Drones, it turns out, are noisy. And there was so much background noise in the video that it just, it wasn't good. In fact, I bought a drone a couple of years ago when I did a big camera fundraiser for Forgotten Weapons. And we have used it sporadically, but very little, because it just turns out to be impractical in a shooting environment.
It's also hard to set up, get it at the right angle, and then when it's filming, it's still bouncing around.
Yep.
You know, I could see where we could set up a somewhat disposable camera downrange.
Yeah.
To get a downrange perspective. The problem with that is match reset.
Right.
We got to go down there, set it up, turn it on, run back, shoot the stage, run up, turn it off, bring it back. And this cuts into time. And as we said earlier, we have 50 to 80 shooters at the match. We don't have a lot of room for that.
Every one of these elements is by itself pretty quick and simple, but when you start stacking them all together, it really becomes a surprising logistical challenge. We are, in addition to that Mohawk camera, I'm really actually kind of excited about the new developments that are showing up in things like cameras mounted to safety glasses. Cameras and computers in general are always getting smaller and smaller, and sooner or later we will be able to have some little tiny, thumb drive sized camera that we can clamp onto the rail of a rifle. So I think we will continue slowly, a bit at a time, we will get some more interesting shots into some of those videos, but a lot of them right now just aren't feasible. If we were setting this thing up and we were doing a stage in a day as like a television production, you would see all sorts of cool shots. We'd have high speed of all sorts of things. It would look like one of the episodes of Top Shot, where you see the guys, moving in slow motion and you see bullets hitting targets. And the only way you can do that is by reshooting everything about 6 times to get each individual camera angle. And we're in an actual real match environment, and that's just not feasible.
Yeah, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but when you watch something like Top Shot and you see the guy running and he stops and shoots, and then there's that awesome slow-mo of the bullet going through the target and exploding.
That's not the same bullet.
It's not the one he shot. They filmed that 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So that stuff's hard, but I think what we're going to see is more and more first-person perspective stuff.
Yeah.
The Mohawk, maybe the stuff with the safety lenses.
Yeah.
Maybe some weapon-mounted cameras. That's kind of stuff we're going to blend it in when appropriate. Obviously, blending in a modern helmet or a weapon-mounted camera when we're shooting a Kar 98 doesn't work. So it's limited application too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're working on it. Fudge says, CCP update. How is your CCP? This is not a question for me because I don't have a CCP.
You mean the Soviet Union? Oh, wait, that's CCCP.
I have several CCC pistols. I do not have a CC.
He's referring to my Walther CCP, which is the concealed carry pistol. It is still my predominant carry pistol. My primary. I have not videoed, but I have taken it to a number of matches because you want to stay proficient with the gun you carry. I saw a lot of people on the internet that had mixed results with the CCP. Some people had glowing reports of it. Some people had less than glowing reports of it. My report is still glowing. I've had 0 issues with it. The gun has had 0 malfunctions. I've had 0 breakage, and it continues to be accurate, reliable, and wonderful to carry. And I've had great scores with it at matches because of that fixed barrel. It's very accurate. It's quick to reload. It has very minimal recoil because of the gas system. As long as you're willing to clean it. So far with my gun, sample 1 of 1, I can still tell you I'm a big fan of the Walther CCP.
Cool. All right. Jeffrey says, would you ever consider running a nationwide 2-gun match in the vein of Red October AK matches, but with CNR guns? I would love to do that, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Okay.
I don't think there's enough interest.
You're going where I'm going.
Yep. We have had themed matches at 2-gun, and you get 4, 5 people, including us, showing up on those themes. I think I'm going to say exactly what you're thinking here, I know. The problem is you have 2 groups of shooters. You have predominantly, you have people who are interested in CNR guns, older bolt guns, early Cold War era stuff, and they are not physically interested in a match like 2-gun. And then you have the guys who are very much interested in the physical aspects of 2-gun, and they own 87 AR-15s, and they're really not interested in getting a Carcano or a Mosin Nagant or any one of those other shitty old guns that isn't any good anymore.
So yeah, you're going where I'm going, and so there is crossover. This is a Venn diagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
CNR guys, 2-gun type guys, and they whoop and they intersect, and there's this sliver in the middle. And I think a lot of you guys watching this are in that sliver.
Yeah, probably.
And obviously we're mutants in that boat, and we are willing to go to a 2-gun match or even a 3-gun match and not win because I'm using an M1 Garand.
Right.
I'm willing to do that. I don't care. I want the lesson of using the gun more than I want my name at the top of some sheet, quite honestly. One of the recent 2-gun matches, I actually ran an 1860 Henry replica.
Right.
Because I wanted to shoot an 1860 Henry. Did I win? Hell no. I was 14th from the bottom. Now, I was 15th from the bottom. I beat 14 people with an 1860 Henry, but you know what? Another 38 people beat me.
Right.
But I don't cry about that because it was fun. I was done, and I got a lot of experience shooting an 1860 Henry replica at the match. Mm-hmm. So, would I ever want to run a nationwide match? To be completely honest, no, unless there was profit in it for me. That is a monstrous job, and mucho respect to people like the guys up in Utah that do that.
Yeah.
Let us remind people, if you don't remember or haven't seen it, there is a hard as hell 2-gun match
Right. Yes.
coming up in May. Go look at our channel. We got a video about it. May 6th and 7th, I think, up in St. George, Utah. Sign up if you want to do this because it's the closest thing you're going to see to a national 2-gun match coming.
Yeah.
So mucho credit to anyone willing to run a national match. So I don't know that I'd want to run a national match unless it honestly meant dinero.
Right.
And I would never bother try to make it a CNR only match. I would maybe throw a division in, and you're going to see maybe 5% of the participants participate in a CNR group.
Yeah. The problem you always run into with this sort of thing is of that little tiny Venn diagram sliver, they are widely scattered across the country, if not the world. And it's easy to find 1 or 2 of those guys in any particular geographic spot, but finding enough people to have a legitimate match is very difficult.
One of the guys that shoots 2-gun, and he's a big 3-gun shooter too. I was talking to him after I shot the match with the Henry, and I'm like, man, that was a lot of fun. That was a really good time. I had a great day, even though I was 15th from the bottom. And I'm like, you should try this stuff. He goes, no, why would I? And I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean, why would I? And I'm like, how many guns you got? And I forgot the number. Let's say it was 10. I got 10 guns. I'm like, you wouldn't want one of them to be a lever gun? He goes, no, they're all ARs. Literally, all 10 are ARs. And I said, why would you have 10 ARs? Well, each one's modified or configured for different matches. That's my 2-gun AR. That's my 3-gun AR. That's my Iron Man AR. That's my long-range AR. And I'm like, okay, I see where this is going.
He kind of has a point in that from a practical perspective, they're going to do the job better than anything that's CNR eligible.
And his point what he said made me go, oh. He goes, will that Henry shoot as well as an AR? I'm like, no, of course not. He goes, then why do I want it? Different perspective on life and different goals.
Yep. All right. Samuel H. says, what can we do as firearms owners to cultivate a healthier martial culture and demonstrate its importance and benefits to the overall society? By martial culture, I don't mean militias. I mean the culture behind the mores of private citizens possessing the best technology available in small arms.
Well, I think martial culture has nothing to do with possessing the best technology. I think it's mindset.
Okay.
I think that a martial mindset, and if we're going to use martial mindset to describe what I think he's going with, which is what we try to do with 2-gun, which is camaraderie, personal improvement, marksmanship, accuracy, mindset, perseverance, and will to succeed against all odds. The 2-gun manifesto series we put up is in that mindset. I think you can have a martial mindset with a Kar 98, with an M1 Garand or an AR-15. So I think, in my opinion, what we should be encouraging is the, not professional is not the word, the responsible, trained ownership of firearms. Whether you decide to use the most modern thing that you can get, or a bolt action gun, we should put an emphasis not on shooting cans in the desert or tannerite, which is fine. I get it. Fun once in a while is fun. But we seem to have, in my opinion, an emphasis on fun over skill. And I think the goal should be, I own this because my reason for owning this is, one, to maintain my heritage of an American heritage, but a heritage of freedom and self-reliance, but also to use it as a tool for my own
Personal improvement.
personal improvement. And personal improvement, if everyone is on that path of personal improvement, or at least everyone around you is on that path to personal improvement, and using the firearm as a tool for that, you will have a martial culture, and you as a group or a tribe will improve one another together.
Yep. I think you should have it and practice it for your own improvement, not for your social status.
Yep. And we need to break this paradigm, and they are fun. I don't want people to think I'm a fun extinguisher, because I'm not. I shoot guns for fun too, but they should not be seen as only toys for fun.
Guns aren't toys.
They're not. They shouldn't ever be seen as toys, but I think a lot of our firearms culture does treat them as such.
A good place to start would be to not open carry in a nylon holster that's poorly attached to your belt. Let's say in a Walmart where you get in a fight with the cashier over something stupid.
You know,
while wearing a racist T-shirt.
You're gonna get heat for that one.
I'm willing to take the heat on that one.
Here's the
I
thing.
think there are people out there who exercise what are legitimately their rights in a manner that makes us all look like idiots and is detrimental to the firearms culture in general. You have the right to do it, but you ought to also have the perspective to recognize that it's not helping anyone, including yourself, and think twice.
I can read the comments on this already. You arrogant son of a bitch, who are you to tell someone how they carry their gun? But here's the thing. Here's what I think on that. I'm not going to tell you what to do, and I'm not going to tell you how to carry it. You do whatever you want to do. It's your deal. It's your life. It's your thing. However, if we as a group, as a whole, as a culture, which it is a culture, if we self-police better, and we don't really, I'm not going to say not tolerate, but we encourage people that are doing things like that to do better, which is what I try to do at Two Gun. It's not about I won or I lost. It's an environment, truly, it really is, an environment where we encourage you to do better. And the videos, hopefully, most of you see that as encouragement to go out and try to do better. And the more people we encourage to do better, the less people we have with that crappy nylon holster getting in an argument at Walmart about the price of their beer.
Yep.
That's my thought.
There's some videos out there much earlier in this, on the Forgotten Weapons channel of me shooting Two Gun and crashing and burning pretty spectacularly.
Oh, I think the progress you've made is astonishing. Yeah. I mean, people are always rooting for Ian because he's the underdog, and I get that, and that's a good thing. But if you watch him from when he started to now, we're now neck and neck more often than not.
Often we are,
and because we have that camaraderie and that teamwork has made you not just a knowledgeable shooter, because you were already knowledgeable, you're like brilliant on guns, but you're now also a skilled shooter. Right. Which, I mean, no offense, you weren't when you came to the table.
Oh, I recognize that.
Right? But that's the difference. You recognized it, right? Yeah. I'm not pointing at you like you. Yeah, I'm saying everyone should look inside and go,
a little self-analysis goes a long way.
A long way. What is it I could do better? And I'm guilty of that too. And hopefully, and I know we get comments about this, when we started this, I've been on this path of physical improvement, okay? Weight loss, CrossFit, etc. That's my introspection. I watch stuff and I look at me, man, I've done effed up. This ain't right. I'm serious. And it's like, and I look at Two Gun, and by the way, my scores at Two Gun were still decent anyway because I was a good shooter. But I'm like, I was already on that path before we started in range, but you got to sit and look and go, okay, what can I do better? And Two Gun is also part of this. Let's use this tool, the firearm, as my impetus to improve. So I go to CrossFit now. I changed how I eat. I'm doing this. I'm getting better, always trying to get better. Does it make my scores better? I don't know. But the reality is this is the linchpin. That's the emphasis and the camaraderie around us to look inside ourselves and try to do better. You did that in that I wanted to become a better shooter. I looked at it and went, I want to become more physically capable and want to be a healthy person in my older years, quite honestly. And if we do that amongst all of ourselves and police this community better, I think we just see less of that. I really do. So that's my thought. And I don't think technology is the answer. It's not AR-15s versus bolt guns or any of that. And the same thing goes for the hunting community. Police yourselves there too. Yeah. You got guys that go out and they're doing the wrong thing. And I'm going on this. I went out hunting once. This is the same thing, policing our community. We were out hunting doves. That's cool. And it was a buddy of mine, and we were out, and I usually bag out pretty quick. I'm pretty good at that. And we had some guy that he brought with him that was a friend of his who I had met before. He wasn't unsafe with his gun, but we're out in the desert, out just doing our thing. And that guy killed everything that moved. He wasn't dove hunting. He was out murdering. The guy was out massacring. There's a rabbit. Boom! Did he eat the rabbit? No. Did he look at the rabbit? No. He just turned it into a red mess. There was a rattlesnake. Way over there. Boom! And I that happened like the fourth time I went up to him like, what are you doing? We're not out here just killing. We're out here dove hunting so we can eat dove, not just the murder stuff. And there's people in every community that require self-policing. And I'm not saying I'm better than that guy, but I'm way above going out in the desert just to kill stuff. My opinion.
All right. Moving on. Caleb R says, quite often, you guys talk about different training events you have been to and the need to train regularly to maintain or improve personal skills when it comes to firearms. I would like to hear your thoughts on activities like Airsoft as a supplemental form of training. Most of the Airsoft rifles and pistols available are similar, if not the same weight as their real counterparts. The weapon manipulations are similar, i.e. mag swaps, sights, safeties, etc. It does allow you to practice in the kit you may use with a real rifle, as the magazines are of similar dimensions to their real counterparts. What do you think of Airsoft? I've gotten this question a bunch too.
Have you? I think what you can learn from, I think there is a lot you can learn from Airsoft. I think there's even a lot you can learn from paintball, even if the guns don't represent anything that's a real gun. What you learn from those things are physical movement, cover and concealment, although cover is debatable in Airsoft, but I mean cover and at least concealment, tactics, communication,
working as a team,
manipulations. What you don't learn is shooting, right? So actually, in some ways, I would argue that some of the stuff you could learn from Airsoft or paintball is probably maybe even more valuable.
Right. Once you know how to handle the gun, more shooting practice is just shooting. And if you want to develop more of a an overall martial skill, you need to understand how to work with teammates and how to work against live actual humans that make human decisions.
It's force on force. And it's funny is that if you haven't watched my 2 videos about Onward VR,
I think Airsoft and VR are very, very similar in application.
I think you can at this point, and we're getting very close where you could do and learn the same practical skills from VR.
I think it's interesting in that they're not quite the same in that VR will give you cover versus concealment because that sort of thing can be programmed in.
Correct.
It does not give you any physical dexterity practice. You don't learn how to drop into a prone position or how to actually hide behind a thing.
You kind of do, actually.
Well, but not, like, how does sand affect you versus mud? How do you climb up that little riverbank without slipping and
Agreed with
falling
all
on
of
your
that.
ass?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes, totally.
The physical element isn't there. But on the other hand, in Airsoft, while you can do that, you're also shooting Airsoft pellets that don't go very far and can be deflected by a leaf. So there are pros and cons to both of them.
I think that tactics, communication, and general field operations can be very, very excellent lessons to learn from Airsoft or paintball or, to another way, VR. I don't think you're going to get the shooting skill. And this question goes the other way. If you think you come to 2-gun and suddenly you're the world's best tactician, you're dead wrong. 2-gun match environments, no matter what, even a practically oriented one like 2-gun, does not teach you tactics.
No, not at all.
In fact, in some instances, it teaches the opposite.
Right.
So you need to take everything in context.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting side question. If you had to go into a gunfight, a 2-on-2 gunfight, and you could pick a partner who is either an expert shot with absolutely no clue about teamwork and training, or someone who never handled a gun before, but was, let's say, a really good airsofter, never fired a real gun, but knew about communication and tactics. I think there's a very good argument to be made either way.
I'd take the Airsoft guy. Quite honestly, he may not be he may be more accurate than you think, especially at close ranges. However, I would take the ability to communicate and work together in teamwork above and beyond the ability for the person to be proficient with their firearm. Yeah, I would. In a combative environment, yeah, I would definitely take that.
It's not all about just pulling that trigger.
I can't even tell you, and this is, I know it's a nerd example, but I can tell you, I've been on teams in Onward VR where I'm like, these guys are switched on, and you just know it. And then I've been on teams where I got fragged in the back when I ran down a hallway. That's real. And the guy that fragged you in the back might have been excellent with a firearm. He might be a 1,000-yard sniper marksman, but he has no concept of working in a team or working in a stack or not shooting each other. The Airsoft guy probably won't shoot you in the back.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. John C. says, "What's your thought on computerized reactive targets? In my experience, they make much better targets than passive steel or paper because they can maintain a certain amount of surprise and force you to react to the target rather than knowing exactly where the next target is and how many hits it will take to neutralize it. Do you think that it is something that would ever find its way into 2-gun or even 3-gun given the high costs of such systems?"
He answered his own question. I'd love to have them. I'd love to have an array of randomly presented targets that take a random amount of hits to neutralize. Love it. Give it to me today. I'll deploy it at a stage next month. Problem is cost. Right now, one computerized target from LaRue costs, what the hell is it, $1,800? Something like that. Well over $1,000. You know how many steel plates I can buy that are static for that price?
Yeah.
A lot. So
All of them.
the cost needs to come down. I would love to use them. I think they have huge potentiality and a lot of real world tactical training capabilities. Can't afford it.
Interestingly, they're in some ways too realistic to be used in a match environment.
Oh,
They
we
would
would-
certainly never be used in 3-gun.
No.
Because if they are in any way randomized, they are not fair. And you're not comparing different shooters on the same course of fire. I don't see that being a problem in 2-gun.
We'd use the
I
hell
think
out of
we'd
them.
be thrilled to use them. But I don't think you'll ever see them.
Well, let me argue
you know,
against you. And this is my match designer coming in. You could use them in 3-gun safely. Let's say you had a target array of 10 targets at 300 yards that all would be essentially calibrated to fall down with a single 5.56 hit. You could then randomly present over a par time of 30 seconds 10 targets.
Okay, that's
3-gun guys would be cool with that.
Right.
What they would not be cool with, which is what I would do at 2-gun, which is we'd have 10 targets at 300 yards, randomly present themselves over a par time of 30 seconds. However, they would not be calibrated to fall with one hit.
right.
That's where that 2-gun, 3-gun shift would occur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about something. They could also have an application for just reset.
Yeah,
I'm
but
trying
you
to
can
think-
do that without electronics.
Yeah, but I'm thinking if you had a way to, with a good computerized system, you could have the effect of paper targets, where you have zones that are scored
yeah.
without actually having to go up and retape them.
By the way, there are high power ranges that have turned into computerized electronic scoring systems, and I believe, maybe our bloke on the range guy would tell us. I believe there are quite a few ranges in Europe that use computerized target systems in Switzerland and such. And so when you're shooting at a paper target, you don't have to have a guy in the pit pulling the target down, marking it, and running it up. You fire through some sort of box, and it shows you on a screen you hit here.
That's got a lot of application.
Yeah.
George Patton lost his Olympic medal because of that, or he claims he did.
Did he?
Yeah, he claims he put 2 bullets through the same hole. The scorers gave him a miss.
It's possible. I have seen it. I have
Yeah.
seen guys that definitely did not miss, that literally put. And so in high power, you have these little doodles that you stick in that try to check the diameter of the hole. You have a 30 cal and a 22 one. But if you were to cut close enough together, it's possible you get screwed.
Yeah. All right, we have one last question here, and that is from Craig S. Karl, I know you've stated that the PS90 in its semi-auto form is kind of meh. I would counter that there are cases where the ease of operation, cycling the action among others, makes it an excellent choice for people with disabilities and physical challenges. My wife, for example, can't rack the slide on a 9mm, but can operate the charger on the PS90 just fine. It's going to be her home defense weapon of choice, SBR'd, of course. Full-size rifle is too much gun for her and too much gun for an apartment dweller. Did he read all of our previous questions, perhaps? Perfect niche for the PDW concept, personal defense weapon. As far as terminal ballistics goes, I figure that except in the most extreme cases of a trained assassin or drug-crazed meth head, once you start putting holes in someone, they're pretty much through playing tough guy and would want to find a doctor. Your thoughts on this? PS90 as a home defense gun.
The PS90 is a really neat gun. I think it's extremely well designed. I'll go on record and think it's the best submachine gun that's ever been developed.
Okay.
In its full auto guise. In semi-auto guise, it is meh, and I've seen it at the match even without SBR, with the longer barrel and therefore having more energy. It can't even knock down a plate rack. It's minimal. I mean, I know people.
It really is like 22 Magnum.
I was going to say that. That's one of those things that gets into an argument, but it really is roughly 22 Magnum. So
FMJ 22 Magnum.
that being said, could you defend yourself with 22 Magnum? Absolutely.
More people get killed by 22s than on volume-wise than any other country.
Here's what I would say to that. I think that, first of all, a long arm is better than a pistol, and you made a lot of already salient arguments as to why your wife can use it when she can't use a pistol, and I think that that's reasonable. I think the magazine has 50 rounds in it, whether it's semi-auto or not. I think that what you would want to practice with that, if you were truly going to leave it as a self or a personal defense weapon in your house, would be to learn to not stop pulling the trigger until the target's neutralized.
That makes sense.
So set up a paper target. Don't give it 1, don't give it 2. give it 5, give it 10. If you're going to set up or calibrate a light steel target and give her random shots where she has to neutralize it, and it takes, sometimes it'll fall with 1, sometimes it'll fall with 15. If you're going to take a round or going to choose a round that is ballistically inferior in terms of its stopping power, doesn't mean it's useless. It just means that you may need to shoot a lot to make sure you neutralize the threat. And a single shot may not do that. So I would say fine. I think it's a fine weapon to choose for that as long as you train with those parameters in mind.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Anything to add to that?
No. I think you covered that pretty well.
Cool. All right.
And that is it.
I don't know how long that was, but it was long. Hopefully you guys made it through it and you found this interesting. If you didn't, we're sorry. We'll try to make the next one better.
But hey, if you didn't, you aren't watching at this point anyway.
Nope. And once again, it's you, the patrons, that support us and the reason that we exist for this. So please continue to subscribe to the channel. Please share this stuff with your friends. And we hope you find this type of information insightful, interesting, and worthwhile.
Thanks for watching.